धातुः स्वयं निषेक्तुर्मातुरेव च मातुः पितुर्वा बलिना क्रेतुरग्ने शुनोऽपि वा एवं साधारणं देहं व्यक्त प्रभवाप्ययं को विद्वानात्मसात् कृत्वा हन्ति जन्तूनृते सह सतः
Dehatimana dhatu swam nisiktur maturevacha matu pitur vabalina kretur agne shunopiva.
Deha kim anadatur swam niseksur matur evacha matur pitur vabalina kritur agnesano piva.
Deha kim annadhatu swam nisekturmature vacha matu pitur vabalina kretur agne shunopiva.
Deha kim annadatu swam nisektur matur evacha matur pitur va balina kretur agne sunopi va.
Okay. So I'll read the translations for both the verses and then the purport for text number 12. While alive, does this body belong to its employer, to the self, to the father, the mother, or the mother's father? Does it belong to the person who takes it away by force, to the slave master who purchased, or to the sons who burn it in the fire? Or if the body is not burned, does it belong to the dogs that eat it? Among the many possible claimants, who is the rightful claimant? Not to ascertain this, but instead to maintain the body by sinful activities is not good. This body, after all, is produced by the unmanifested nature and again annihilated and merged in the natural elements. Therefore, it is the common property of everyone. Under the circumstances, who but a rascal claims this property as his own, and while maintaining it, commits such sinful activities as killing animals just to satisfy his whims? Unless one is a rascal, one cannot commit such sinful activities. Report by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Atheists do not believe in the existence of the soul. Nonetheless, unless one is very cruel, why should one kill animals unnecessarily? The body is a manifestation of a combination of matter. In the beginning, it was nothing, but by a combination of matter, it has come into existence. Then again, when the combination is dismantled, the body will no longer exist. In the beginning, it was nothing, and in the end, it will be nothing. Why then one commits activities when it is manifested? It is not possible for anyone to do this unless he is rascal number one. Om Agyanatimiranda Sajjananjanan Salakaya Chaksham Tasmai Shri Gurudeva Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupatada Maya Tada Viswapadante Kam Om Gudaya Krishna Sadhutalishna Vedanta Swami Itinamine Namaste Sadaswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Destarani Hare Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Go Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So very interesting and appropriate that the pastime that you just read, the Binding of Lord Krishna by Mother Yashoda, is leading up to the Kartik season, month of Damodar, which is coming up very soon, I believe this weekend. So in that pastime, these two persons, Nalukuvara and Manigriva, they were not very respectful in the presence of Narada Muni because of being overwhelmed by their material opulence. They were very, very beautiful, very, very powerful. And in the material world, when you have beauty, opulence, power, sometimes you can become overwhelmed by these things. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, what does it say? Prakriti kriyamanani gunain karmani sarva ahankar vimud atma kartaham itti manyate. That the bewildered spirit soul, bewildered by what? This material energy, thinks himself to be the doer of the activities that are carried out by nature. So these are that we should always try to remember. Without proper association, it's hard to remember sometimes. We become overwhelmed. As it says in that verse, the bewildered spirit soul, vimudha, by their own ego. So in that case, it's important to have the association of those who are able to see through the Maya. In most cases, that is the spiritual master, but in a general sense, pure devotees in general, or saintly persons who have that vision. That's why Krishna told Arjuna, just try to learn the truth by approaching the spiritual master. Inquire submissively and render service. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because you have seen the truth. And then the spiritual master, he brings that truth. We compare it to a light. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Tatsu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So what is that light? Just like now I'm sitting here in Atlanta in the dark. And the only light I have is coming from my iPad and my computer. But it's barely enough. But the spiritual master is like the sun, powerful. And I'm just waiting, hopefully, for the sun to come out because it's very dark and cloudy. But even without the sun completely being there, there's a glimmer of light. So the spiritual master brings that light into our dark world, in our dark consciousness, to help us see things in the proper light. So these boys, or men, Manigriva, Nalakuvara, they were blessed by Narada Muni in the form of a curse. That reminds me of that Christian saying, when God wants to send you a gift or present, he wraps it in a problem. So due to ignorance, we can't see that God is blessing us. He's blessing what we think to be a problem. Because Krishna consciousness, there is nothing that can impede the progress of Krishna consciousness other than our, and even those can be removed with the grace of the pure devotee, as in the case of Narada Muni. So this curse that Narada Muni gave was actually a blessing, because I forget how many years, I don't have it in front of me. I think it was 100 years of the demigod's time, something like that. They had to stand as trees. But then they stood in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and then Krishna pulled them down, and they regained their form. That's actually a blessing. Now, it took some time for the blessing to be realized. So during that time, people become, even in Krishna consciousness, when we can't remember the power of the blessing of the holy names and the spiritual master, and we have difficulties, sometimes we become discouraged. Many people go away from Krishna consciousness or give up the practice, at least temporarily. But if you're patient, utsaha nistaya dharjat, if we're patient and enthusiastic, because enthusiasm alone is not enough. You can be super enthusiastic, and if things are not happening according to your time frame, you will become discouraged. So you have to be patient. You have to have faith in the words of the spiritual master, in the words of Krishna. That's why it's important that we constantly expose ourselves to the beautiful pastimes of the Lord, the beautiful words of the Lord in Bhagavad Gita, the beautiful descriptions given by all the wonderful acharyas and devotees. That will keep us focused. Therefore it says, Nasta prayesu badresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Regularly attending classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. As I mentioned before, you're also fortunate. You regularly come to this class every morning. You hear from different devotees, beautiful descriptions about the pastimes of the Lord, instructions from Srila Prabhupada. That will bless you for the entire day, guaranteed, if you just remember these wonderful instructions of the Lord. So now the first thing that Srila Prabhupada talks about here in the purport, he says, atheists do not believe in the existence of the soul. That's a very bold statement. Not only the atheists, but generally speaking, people with a poor fund of knowledge, even within the religious circles, don't understand the soul. They believe in the existence of the soul, the religious people, but they think the soul begins at a certain point. I've always challenged practitioners of Christianity, even back to my childhood. When I made the observation in the Bible, the very first page, there's a lot that happens on the first page of the Bible. It's incredible. But how God formed man from the clay and blew the breath of life into that form, and it became a living soul. So that is the foundation of their philosophical understanding of the soul. Became a living soul, as if there's a dead soul. Of course, there's no dead soul. But in their conception, life begins at a certain point. But according to Bhagavad Gita, never was there a time, as Krishna says, when he did not exist, nor Arjuna, nor all the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. They're all eternal. Krishna just tells Arjuna, I can remember all the times that I've appeared. You cannot, because you're changing your body. Your body's changing and you forget. One time you think you're human, another time you think you're an animal. Whichever body you inhabit, you become bewildered by that body, that situation. So this misunderstanding of the soul is the basis of so many problems in this world, which is the next point that Srila Prabhupada brings up. It is insane because people think they're white souls, black souls, Indian souls, African souls, European souls. Otherwise, how can there be so much hatred in the world? If everyone understood that all the souls equal, period, end of story, the problems in the world would be solved. All the racial problems, ethnic problems, gender problems, everything would be solved. In fact, that's the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita, is it not? The first lesson is, smanyata dehe, kabram yoganam jara, tatata handara praptir, dhiras tattvanamuyati. And that explains how the soul is moving in the body. Body is changing, but the soul remains the same. But depending on our ignorance, the level of our ignorance, and how we identify with that body, Srila Prabhupada calls it very nicely, designative disqualification. Think about that phrase. Designative. It's like I designate myself as an African American. That's a disqualification. Designate yourself as a Caucasian American. That's a disqualification. Or Indian American, disqualification. But we totally identify with these things. We identify almost like animals. It's amazing. Because the animal can't see. It can't understand any of these things. The human being is supposed to try to understand the purpose of life. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Human life is meant for that search for the truth, to try to understand the truth. But instead, they allow themselves to be overwhelmed by these temporary bodies. So these verses are describing, who does this body belong to? We're so attached to it, but who does it belong to? Well, it can belong to the dogs if they throw it in the field. Prabhupada describes in some cultures, they just throw the body out. And the animals will come, the vultures will come, and they will clean it up. Of course, in Western society, they make big arrangements and they allocate acres and acres and acres of land to bury the body as if the person is still there. It's a sentiment, and we should respect that sentiment. Because, many of us have had parents that have passed away and relatives that have passed away and friends that have passed away. So we don't want to disrespect that. But the truth of the matter is that is a sign of our ignorance. So this body belongs to who these verses are pointing out. And then in one place it says, therefore it is a common property. Why? Because it goes back into the elements. And there it is. So misunderstanding about the soul being separate from the body, that is the beginning of that ignorance. Now, the next part, which is something I want to point out here, nonetheless, unless one is very cruel, why should one kill animals unnecessarily? Now, I'm not sure if all of you are aware of the number of animals that are killed in this country, just America alone, every year. There's something called the animal kill clock, K-I-L-L, clock, the animal kill clock. And it shows second to second how many animals are dying. So when I was looking at it yesterday, it was exactly 12:50 p.m. yesterday. And as I was writing it down, the clock was still ticking. Ticking meaning animals being killed. So in the U.S. alone, 45,664,126,655 animals die every year. Of that, 800,000 cows are killed every year. And then I looked at another figure and it said worldwide there's something like a trillion animals, fish, birds. So the number just blew my mind. I couldn't process it. That's unbelievable. I mean, I knew there were millions and millions of animals being killed, but the number trillions, I had never noticed that before. And that really shook me to my core. Trillion. It's like they're talking about the stimulus packages that the government's trying to put out. $1 trillion, $2 trillion, and people are saying those numbers are unbelievable. What about the death of all these creatures on this planet? Why is that not unbelievable? Only a rascal would indulge in such activity. We were, at least myself, I'm not saying everybody on the phone, because I'm sure, especially some of you who are from Bharat, from India, might have been brought up in vegetarian families, but I never even heard the word vegetarian when I grew up in the 50s and 60s in my neighborhood. Never heard the word. Had no understanding what it meant or what it was. In fact, when I first became a devotee, and I was telling someone the other day why I like cheesecake so much, and everyone who knows me, they know I love cheesecake. But the reason is, when I first started coming to the temple, no one told me how to be a vegetarian. So I thought a cheesecake was vegetarian. Of course, it had eggs in it. I didn't know eggs were not vegetarian. So I became addicted to cheesecake. And that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. I was trying to be a vegetarian in the projects I lived in, but no one could show me. There was no one in my neighborhood that could say, hey, Benny, this is how you do it. And gradually the devotees started training me. And it was so beautiful, that transition from eating meat to taking all prasadam and vegetarian things. But people have no sense of the pain that they're causing. And then when we get the reaction, which really we're getting it now due to things like the coronavirus and all the suffering that's on. This is a reaction. It's a reaction to the amount of suffering we're causing. Therefore, Prabhupada says, unless one is very cruel, think about this, everybody. Animal slaughter is very cruel. I saw a little video clip the other day from one lady. She's actually like a guru for a major organization. They have a chain of restaurants, vegan restaurants. And they always show these videos of her speaking, but I just somehow saw a little bit of it on the internet. And they were interspersing some scenes of animal slaughter. And it's just horrible. How can people do it? One reason that people can support it, because they don't see it. They don't see the animals suffering. They just see the nice things packaged in the grocery store. They go buy something from the McDonald's. It looks so decorated and beautiful, and so many wonderful spices to hide the fact that it's just dead flesh. Dead flesh. And then gradually, if they become aware of that and the impact it has on the world and also the environment, they gradually start becoming vegan or vegetarian. But it's very, very unfortunate. So one thing is, and I think about this quite often, I've seen this commercial produced by one organization, I forget their name, PSC or something. And they're always talking about, give us $19 a month and we can save one dog. And every time I see that, I just become angry. So one time I called them on the phone and I got to speak with one of the people there. And I asked them, I said, I'm not trying to challenge you or anything like that, but why aren't you mentioning at all the suffering that's caused to animals like the cows? You're only talking about dogs, and now they added cats. And the other day I saw they added tigers. But they don't even think about the suffering of 800,000 cows. Think about that. So I was thinking, why is it that the Hindu community, who primarily, are vegetarians, along with the Krishna conscious community and other communities, why don't we do a counter promotion on television where people see it mostly? Saying, send us $50 and we'll save a cow. The cows are so much more valuable. I don't want to say important because, of course, they are more important, but the soul is the same in all the living beings, 400,000 species of life. But the cow is so important to the sustenance of mankind. She gives her milk, turn it into cheese and yogurt and so many amazing things. So anyway, only because they are very cruel and very ignorant, that is a lead-in to the inspiration for our preaching. Their ignorance is what we are supposed to help remove. But first of all, we have to put ourselves in a very strong spiritual position in order to give that message. It's like Narada Muni in his Palestine. He's blessing these ignorant persons because they were not dressed properly, they were disrespectful to a sadhu. He saw that, he blessed them, and gradually they got the mercy of Krishna and were liberated. Let's move on a little bit here. The next point, the body is a manifestation of a combination of matter. In the beginning, it was nothing, but a combination of matter has come into existence by a combination of matter. So here, there's a purport in chapter number 13, text 35 of the Bhagavad Gita. Chaitra Gayor Ivam Antaram Gyan Chakshusha Bhuta Prakriti Moksham Cha Ye Vidur Janti Te Param. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage and material nature, attain to the supreme goal. We have a regular Bhagavad Gita study group with some devotees from there in Philadelphia and also in Atlanta, and we've been reading this 13th chapter about the Chaitra Gya, the field of activity, and the knower of the field of activities, and the super knower. So the field of activities is material body and whatever capabilities it might have or limitations it has. So one who knows, it's a field of activity. It's not us. We're looking at it. We're utilizing it based on our karma. And then the super knower is the super soul. He guides us through that process. So in the purport, I'll just read some of it. And then there's a letter from Srila Prabhupada to a devotee, which ties into this. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the owner of the body, and the super soul. A faithful person should first have some good association to hear of God, and thus gradually become enlightened, as I mentioned that in the beginning. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. So we have to have that understanding, as Srila Prabhupada, everyone knows how many times he says we're not this body. over and over and over. Why is that? Because we forget it every moment of every day. All of us. Just Prabhupada kept emphasizing that. Because the body is just made of elements. So another part of the purpose, he says, for instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic considerations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. So when we were reading this in our weekly Bhagavad Gita study group, we did a little research of the 24 elements. Here's a nice reference from Srila Prabhupada. It's a letter to Bhagavan in 1969. Regarding the second question, the 24 elements are the 5 gross elements, the 3 subtle elements, 10 senses, 5 sense objects, and the total material cause, Mahatattva. Above these, there's the situation of the spirit soul, which is the 25th category. And above this is the super soul, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind is a subtle element. Therefore, it is in the body. Generally, the brain is accepted as the location of the mind. Which I remember His Grace Sadaputa and Drutakarma Prabhu, they always thought out about the scientific confusion, the mind-brain problem. They don't know exactly what a mind is because they can't see it. You can see the indication of a mind through the actions of the person. Even in the animals, it's amazing how people don't understand the presence of the soul within the animal. And that subtle body carries over. Unless we think there's no mind still with the soul wherever he goes. You notice that I have a squirrel that comes in my house almost every day, and I put all these obstructions for him, but he gets around it. And I'm watching him thinking, this guy is really intelligent. He remembered that was an obstruction. He went the other way. And I'm just observing the intelligence of these little creatures, even down to the ant. You put the way of an ant, it'll go around it. What is that? So it's just the actions and reactions of this material nature and the living entity being there, identifying with that combination of the 24 elements. And the spiritual master helps us to see through that. So, again, the cruelty of people, the ignorance of people, is all taken into account by the advanced devotees, and they find ways to lift up the society, lift up people in, in a large way or a small way. Narada Muni is very famous for liberating individuals. And in this regard, about the animal killing, I wanted to share a little bit, because I know you should all know the story of Narada Muni and the hunter Mrigari. So just in short, Narada Muni came upon this hunter. Narada Muni was at a distance, and he gets this hunter, dressed very roughly, very with his bows and arrows. And then Narada Muni, first of all, saw some animals lying on the road. He saw, I believe, 1 or 2 or 3 animals he saw, but they were like suffering. They were half killed. They were writhing in pain, flapping around. And then finally, Narada Muni saw this hunter, and he understood that the hunter was causing this necessary pain to the animals. So Narada Muni approached them. First, the hunter was a little bit upset because when Narada Muni approached them, the animals all that he was waiting to kill or shoot, they all ran away. So he was initially upset with Narada Muni. But then he calmed himself down. He could see that Narada Muni was a saintly person. So that's one thing that, by your very presence as devotees, you can bring auspiciousness to people in general. You might think that they're very bad or that this and that, but just by you being a humble, gentle Vaishnava or Vaishnavi, you can bring a lot of auspiciousness into the lives of the general mass of people. So Narada Muni began to speak with this hunter, And he asked him, why is he doing this? And he said, I learned this from my father. My father taught me this. And then Narada Muni said, I only ask one benediction, one blessing from you, one thing from you. And the hunter was saying, whatever you want. I have so many skins. I can give you so many nice skins. Whatever you want, I can give you. Narada Muni said, no, I have just one request. And he said, what is that? That going forward, that you kill the animals completely. Now, I've always taken notice of that instruction. And someone would think, why would a Vaishnava tell someone to kill? And Narada Muni explained, killing animals, doing amount of karmic suffering that you're going to have to go through. And then the hunter was very what Narada Muni was saying. Narada Muni explained to him that all the animals that you killed, they will come back in the next life and kill you. And when the hunter heard that, he was completely shocked. He'd never heard anything like that before. Now, one reason why this story is so appropriate for us, and why I'm taking a little time to describe it, is that this is a perfect example of preaching. Think about it. Narada Muni meeting someone who's totally cruel, horrible character, but he found a way to liberate this person, first by giving him an instruction, asking him to follow. Because the spiritual master finds a way, and he gives the disciple the process to follow. That's why it says the Bhakti Lata Bija. We know first Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. So Prabhupada explains the Bhakti Lata Bija, the rules and regulations of devotional service constitute the Bhakti Lata Bija. You have to think about that. All the rules and regulations given to us by Srila Prabhupada, by presenting Nectar Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, all of those rules and regulations, 16 rounds, following regular principles, rising early in the morning, so many things. That is the Bhakti Lata Bija. That is the seed of devotion. We water it by doing those things every day, hearing and chanting. So Narada Muni is instructing this so that the hunter will begin to follow a bona fide spiritual authority. You might say, well, why would Narada Muni tell him to do that? Because Narada Muni is trying to create something this person has to go through and give him a chance to follow a pure devotee, which will gradually help him to make it fast. The hunter really surrendered to Narada Muni. He said, now I surrender, please guide me. And Narada Muni guided him. And he became a great follower of Narada Muni. So this, to me, is an inspiration. As I pointed out, the number of animals that are killed every day and every year in this country and around the world, and so many horrible things that are going on, the racial tensions in the world, all these things are happening. We as devotees, following in the footsteps of Narada Muni, Mahajino Yena Gata Sapantaha, and of course following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, we have to find a way. We can't be dismayed or discouraged by the level of insanity that's in the world today. Just imagine when Srila Prabhupada came to America. It was at the beginning of the hippie movement, 1965 and 66. It was really, the country was in turmoil. Just like now we think there's so much, racial tensions, protests. I know in Philadelphia just the other day, an African-American man was shot by the police. Immediately people went to the street and started protesting, rioting, looting, and all those things. So it's going on like crazy. Srila Prabhupada, when he came, was a similar situation. I mean, the riots were happening in California and many, many places all over the country that was going on. They were growing in numbers, and the drugs and all these things were going on, but he found a way. And what was that way? He introduced people to chanting Hare Krishna by chanting himself. He started by himself chanting, and then other people came, and they heard the chanting, and he gave them instructions as they came closer to him. And he gave them prasad whenever he had it. So he was always thinking how to lift up these people. In fact, before he even stepped foot on this soil in the USA, he prayed to Krishna to please make my words suitable for them to understand, because they're in ignorance. He could see it. They're in ignorance. So what I take away from these verses today, and this purport by Srila Prabhupada, is that the atheistic nature of people, the cruel nature of people, the ignorant nature of people, it's up to us to make a difference, as in the case of Narada Muni. Narada Muni, by his mercy, uplifted Manigriva, and then Narada Muni lifted up Mrigarari, and the list goes on and on and on and on of the persons who were liberated. And of course, we know by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we're all here today on this call, only because of Srila Prabhupada. Because of Srila Prabhupada, we have so many wonderful leaders in our movement, so many wonderful preachers, but it's only because of Srila Prabhupada. So following his footsteps, we should find a way. And we know the way. It's not complicated. We know the way. The way is to share Krishna's glories with others. Very simple. You can ask a person, have you ever heard of Krishna? And they say yes or no. If they say no, then you tell them. You tell them. And that telling should be, what is the word I put down? Unfiltered. It's the unfiltered truth, Krishna consciousness, to bless the fools and rascals, as described by Srila Prabhupada. When I say unfiltered, you don't need to change anything. We're not obligated to mask or hide our philosophy. Just tell it. Who is Krishna? Supreme Personality of Godhead. What does that mean? Explain. From Bhagavad Gita, from the Bhagavatam. Just tell it as you know it, as you understand it. And people will gradually appreciate, along with the chanting of the holy names. So those are my thoughts today. I just was so inspired by these two verses and just thinking about Narada Muni and the risk that he took, especially in the case of the Mrigarari, the hunter. The man had bows and arrows, and Narada Muni approached them. I'm telling you to go out in front of people with guns and all that. Be careful when you do that. But you have to think. You have to pray. Like many of going out. Of course, going out now, you have to be extremely careful because of the coronavirus. Please, I beg you, please be careful. We just lost one of my dearest godbrothers that I've known for many years, Yashomati Nanapu in India. It's very sad. He was a very sweet boy. In Atlanta, he gave me special charge of his son when he lived in Atlanta. And then we lost him for Russia, and then other devotees are suffering. So be careful. But think of how we can uplift the general mass of people through preaching Krishna consciousness. So those are my thoughts. I'll stop there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Anyone have any questions? I can't see you, so Drona, are you there?
Yes. Thank. One second, Renika. Mataji. I'll get to you in just a second. Thank you, Prabhu, for your class, and it also is a lesson for us that sometimes things don't work out perfectly. We may be in the storm, our electricity may be out, but the show must go on. So Balabhadra, thank you for being determined to find a way to be with us this morning, despite all the electrical problems and the storm that's happening in Atlanta. A question for you, you mentioned earlier in the class about patience, how Nala Kuvera and Manigriva couldn't see their, this blessing that came to them. It was in the form of a curse, and they had to wait there as trees for quite a long time, many, many lifetimes. So the lesson of patience, because there's blessings for us in the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes we don't necessarily see them; they may not manifest. What can you tell us about patience and being patient for, waiting for the process of Krishna consciousness to unfold in our lives?
Yeah, that's a very powerful question, and I'll try to share some thoughts. And others can weigh in as well. What I find to be true is that if you know the end result, it becomes natural. Patience is a natural byproduct of the understanding of the end result. It's like when you go to college. You know, I don't have that experience because I joined the movement right after school, high school. But when you go to college, it's a long process, 4 more years. And then if you want to be a medical person, it's more years than that. But you know what the end result is. So no matter how many difficulties are thrown in front of you, you keep going because you know where you want to go. You can see it. And then at the final end, when you get your diploma, degree, and all that, you see, wow, it was worth all that trouble. But you wouldn't do it if you had no faith in the end result. Here's a problem, John Charles. Most of us still don't identify with pure devotion service. And I say that very respectfully, because we come to Krishna consciousness and we bring with us sometimes material desires, material misunderstandings, incorporate that into our consciousness. And we've seen it happen, and I'll try to explain it a little more. Devotees try to utilize the situation in Krishna consciousness to improve their material situation, which is interesting. It's happened. Believe me, it's happened so many times. Utilizing the resources of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON in order to make a comfortable situation for ourselves. It's like in the Nectar of Instruction, it says, offering palatable foods for the sake of eating nice foods. That's like... That's a little bit dangerous. I remember for the Lord Chaitanya's 500th anniversary in Atlanta, devotees made 1,200 preparations, 1,235, something like that.
Wow.
And we advertised big festival.
Oh,
So we had simple. I'm sure we were thinking, wow, it's going to be great pies and cookies and of course, every single item was taken away by the people who came. They were so excited. We had zero. I mean, the temple devotees had nothing, but we were so happy giving that. So that's a point that we have to be careful of. Don't perform devotion service for sense gratification. Perform it for the sake you can serve Spirit Master and Krishna. Patience is a byproduct of understanding the goal. And then also being in the association of devotees who can encourage you when you're not feeling inspired. Sometimes, you become discouraged. Everyone does. Even Srila Prabhupada, when he first came to America, sometimes he was thinking about going back to India. But then he would think about his spiritual masters. He had no, okay? He had none. We have lots of association. So I guess, Donna, what I would say is to take advantage of that association from others who are more stable and more focused than yourself. Make sure you have a good group of peers that you can reach out to when you're struggling, when you're not focused. Someone that you can reach out to and be inspired. So those are my thoughts. What do you think? Anyone else?
so Prabhu, I have one question.
Yes.
Another question. I really like why you speak about, the animal society, how they're protecting the dogs, the cats, and protecting the cows, and how many cows are being killed. So very nice information. Thank you very much for this information. So you said
Yes.
that the Indian people, but what I observe, many Indian, most of the Indians, they are not vegetarian in this country. Maybe we have some group like the Gujarati, some of the Gujarati, even the Gujarati, most of them, because I've been dealing with a lot of Indian during my cultivating the congregation in other temples, but most of the Indians are not vegetarian. And, about protecting the cows, and even they were vegetarian in India, when they come here, the things they have to eat because they are just contaminated by the West. And like in India, everywhere we can see there's McDonald's. People, even they don't eat beef, but they will eat chicken and goats and all, eating eggs. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, is this meat eating is just increasing even in the Indian community?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We have to get out front of this movement, because people are starting to go away from eating meat. Vegans, the vegan movement is huge, but it's not associated with India. The vegetarian movement is huge, but it's not associated with India. And I was telling some yoga is not associated with India or the Vedic culture. People don't realize a lot of one of the gross misuse in India is the swastika. Everyone on this phone call knows what the swastika is. But the swastika is associated with white supremacy. Can you believe that? The swastika is part of the Vedic culture. But because we've been lazy, and I say this, Mataji, with all due respect to all of us, Indians especially, we've been lazy not to represent our culture. That's why I said, with reference to the killing of the animals, especially the cow, why aren't we Hindu, Vedic, Vaishnavas? Why don't we put our money where our mouth is and let people and educate people? It's like I brought those figures to you. 800,000 cows killed every year in America. Billions of animals in the world. We should spend some money to explain these things to people. It's like Narada Muni explained to McGrory. I guarantee you people will say, I never heard that before. I never knew that before. Instead, we sit back, and as you said, we fold into the Western culture, the Indians eating meat and trying to impress their friends and blah, 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 losing respect for their own culture. So I say, we have to take the lead. We meaning devotees of Srila Prabhupada. We have to take the lead, get out front, speak up, speak out, but don't filter. Don't change it. Just tell the truth, as Prabhupada told it. And we can help so many people, especially in our Indian community and, everyone else, understand how cruel, how horrible it is to kill animals the way they are. And my godbrother, I seen a godbrother here in his Traditional group. He was saying they practice that all this suffering from this coronavirus and all these things is due to killing of animals. And I totally agree with that. So anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes,
Hare
please.
Krishna.
One second. Renuka had her hand up, so we want to get to her first, and then we'll come over, swing over. to Krishna.
That's fine. I would like to give my turn to Krishna Ji's, and then Krishna Prabhuji, and then I'll take if there is time.
Okay, very nice.
Thank you.
I'm practicing compassion.
Thank you, Renuka Mataji. Very nice of you. Though you could have spoken anyway. Because this subject of compassion has come. I agree that, even though we have come from Indian background, some or other got to devotional service also. But unfortunately, we forget, we never remember our responsibility. So painful. After coming to America, also all the facility we have, still we don't do Parapukara. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and taking care of the cows, educating about the cows also. I know it's a very difficult task, but I wanted to really ask everyone's prayers today. It's been constant object of meditation for me. But today again, I'm scheduled to go to see a farm to serve the cows. So it may not happen just because of my efforts, but I request everyone, please pray, hope will give a home for the cows. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Any more people, or can I take?
Krishna, would that be a Krishna village?
No, we tried this year itself. We tried to have a couple of cows. Then, considering it's going to grow, then another location separate, where there's a facility for a person, caretaker can stay, or it can be turned into a small center also. But for the cow, we want to dedicate a separate place. then the cows can keep on coming. And we, Philadelphia, Delaware, we all can serve together. It's not like that just because it's located in, Delaware, because it's not very easy. That's why not everybody is taking initiative for this. But if you are together, I think it's not a big thing. We all can do it.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Krishna ji, for bringing that saving the cows topic. We'll keep it in our mind and see what we can do for that. Hare Krishna, Bala, Bhadra, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Reina Kumaraji, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. So you are the person who has the Hanuman in the background, right? When you sit in front of the Zoom. Are you the person? Okay, thank you. I'm trying to match the person since you're on the phone call. Thank you for today's lecture. It's very relevant in COVID times. As you said, it's very relevant. So here is my question, and this has been bothering me for the last couple of days. So as you mentioned in today's call, there is this incident going on in downtown Philly, and I live, I think, a couple of feet away from where these things are happening. And although I'm not there, my stuff and my apartment is still there, and I'll be back in Philly soon. Something that happens around my neighborhood, and I don't do something about it. Like, I just felt like, I should purchase a set of Gita books and give it to all the parties. Like, I don't know, I can't give to everybody in the public, but at least I wanted to send one to the 2 police officers who were involved in yesterday's. Literally, I wanted to give it to them in hand, like go to the department and give them in hand and say, hey, why don't you guys read this book once? Something like that. See, as crazy as that. Okay. So as a ISKCON person, as an ISKCON person, what is it that one single thing that I can do? Like, I'm surprised, the ISKCON being say, like, yes, we are into Krishna conscious, but in a way, it's all about peace, right? Inner peace, world peace, whatever. Like, doesn't ISKCON have any stance? And don't you guys do something when something like these are not even animals? See, we are so concerned about animals and cows and all the animals, but this is like a the way the I don't know what goes on, but somewhere that de-escalating procedures or trying to not having a proper sense of judgment, doing the wrong things at the right time, or clearly something is missing here in the society. Something is missing. So as Krishna conscious, as an organization, I don't know if you have been here for many years. So is there anything that you guys do for de-escalating this? Or if you don't have any agenda for dealing these kind of things, can you tell me what I could do? Because I'm like, for past 2 days, I'm like, I mean, how can this happen? And in my neighborhood, so I wanted to do something about it. So is there something that I can do if ISKCON doesn't have? Can I send I don't know, like, if I send a box of Gita, probably they will not, they may not even understand. So I should hand deliver it like to the people. So like,
yes. There's a devotee who he lives in Philadelphia right now, Atlanta with me for many years. Sudaniti. Accentuate your point. He went to every governor in the 50 states and personally handed the Bhagavad Gita to the governor directly. So when you say about, my heart just blossomed. I met Srila Prabhupada in Chicago, 1975, I believe, when he had a meeting with 10 and why? And if you have the book, Science of Separalization, that exchanges in the Science of Separalization, you know what Prabhupada told him? Prabhupada told him there was a building close to the Chicago temple. He said, you give us that building, we will distribute prasadam and chant to solve your crime problem. That example, I mean, that you want to give the policeman thing. Do it. Just don't wait for anything. Just do it. So what you can do personally, like Narada Muni. Narada Muni didn't have an army of people behind him. It was just Narada Muni. And he found a way. What is that finding a way? Let's take a second. What is that finding a way? That is the super soul within your heart. He's in your heart telling you, go give those books. You don't have to wait for me or Drone or anyone else. Go give those books in your neighborhood. Also,
no, not to the not to the whole neighborhood. No.
No.
I'm not going to do that.
In your neighborhood. I didn't say neighborhood. In your neighborhood. So as a important verb, I'll try to remember the Bengali. Yare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesh amar agya khana tare desh. Wherever you are in your spot, where you live, one person, 10 people, whatever number you can. You have the right idea. You were inspired by the super soul. You have to follow like Prabhu or the devotees, Vishnu Gadar Prabhu, or whatever little bit I can help guide you, because that is so wonderful. You have been blessed with that inspiration. Now you follow that inspiration. You reach out. There's some experienced preachers there in Philadelphia. So you say, what is ISKCON doing? ISKCON is a big movement with many levels, many levels of leadership. We have like our GBC for Philadelphia, Anutama Prabhu. He's the communications director for ISKCON, and he reaches out to religious organizations and political organizations and things like that. And there are devotees going out on the streets. As I said, if you go out in public, be fair because of the virus, but they're going out distributing books and meeting people. But I'm saying for you, in your limited situation, because you don't have time to go every day, but when you're inspired like that, you have to follow inspiration. That is an amazing idea. Yeah, so directly, if I were you and you had time, go direct to the police department. Show them how much we appreciate and we know the difficulties going through, and this Bhagavad Gita can help them. Let me give you one last example. I believe it's in England. The Buddhist monks, they started training the police. I think it was a few hundred in the beginning in meditation. And now it's a national project with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of policemen who are sitting down every day doing meditation, because one or two Buddhist monks, they went in.
So that's what I was asking. Doesn't ISKCON have anything like that Buddhist monk plan? Like, I clearly cannot teach them the whole of Gita, but something like meditation. See, telling them they need to check their de-escalation procedures, like in some way, shape or form. See, whether it really brings any change or no change, but a small effort from a part of the society can ISKCON does not exist as an isolated club in some in the remote part of the city, or just it's just not about prayers and eating Sunday feast. It's beyond that.
Yeah, I agree. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
No. When I get back to Philly, I don't know if I'll get an appointment to just drop by their office, or just, hey, can I drop by as a citizen of Philly? Like, I live in downtown Philly.
Absolutely.
I don't know, like, if they'll read all those 18 books, right? Bhagavad Gita is 18 books. Probably I'll take a gist book, or I don't know. I'll do something, or put it on the CD version of it or something like that, and say, hey. You know what? Not doing anything makes me a bad person.
I know. So books you can don't.
Got plenty of books.
He said, see something, do something. Otherwise, what are you going to tell your children? You saw something and you didn't do anything. If you see it, do it. Do something to help. So, I'm sorry, Pooh.
Okay, so one more question. This is like a very silly question, but last night, like I watch a lot of Telugu movies. Like it's like 1 or 2 movies per day. So, but recently, for the last 2 months, I think because I got caught up in this ISKCON thing, I didn't watch the Telugu movie. So it suddenly struck me like what's going on the Telugu movie scene. So last night I watched a Telugu movie. So watching movies, is it good or bad according to the ISKCON thing?
Is it good or bad?
No, you have those 4 core principles, but nothing was mentioned about watching movies.
Yeah, I mean, bad, whatever can pollute your mind is not good. Rupa Goswami says, you accept those things that are favorable, reject those things that are unfavorable. That's a principle, Renuka, that you have to put into your thinking. Is it favorable? Are you learning something? some movies have very good morals and principles and ideas that can be.
No, this is entertainment. This is entertainment.
Well, I'm just saying, if it's favorable to your spiritual development, then that's what you do. You have no law. It says you can't. You did not encourage it, but there is no.
I see. Can you say yes or no? Because it's very hard for me to.
I cannot tell you what to do in your life. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, giving up the lower taste by accepting a higher taste. Movies, sense gratification, that's a lower taste, but it's still a taste. You give it up by increasing your devotion service. What I will tell you, Renika, just focus on your Krishna consciousness. I promise you that this is a promise. If you focus on chanting Hare Krishna, even if it's one round a day.
No. Before watching the movie, I did finish 16 rounds yesterday. So I finished my homework.
Promise.
Well, Prabhu, you're breaking up a little bit, I think. I think we may have lost him. Can anybody else hear him?
We can't hear him.
You can't hear him.
Oh, Krishna.
Balabaja, I think we didn't hear that last, whatever you were just saying in response to Renika. We couldn't hear you. Maybe that's an indication that
We are doing.
we pick it up on another day. That's the good thing about having these classes daily, is that whatever question we may have, it doesn't get answered, we can carry it over until the next class. And it looks like Balabhadra Prabhu, I think he just dropped off. So if you missed it earlier on in the class, there's a tropical storm that's blowing through the south. We're going to get it later tomorrow into the weekend. Remnants of it, but Balabhadra is in Atlanta. Balabhadra Prabhu is in Atlanta, and he lost electricity as a result of it. So we hope that him and his family and his community soon, everything's okay down there. Everybody's safe. And we're 9 o'clock here, so I think we'll end. And we can, Renika, we can discuss your question at a later time. Or if any devotee wants to reach out to her independently, they can do so. But thank you all for your attention and participation today, and we'll continue tomorrow. Today is Thursday, which means at 6:45 we have the Brahma Samhita prayers. Tonight it's led by Vishnu Gada Prabhu, and that'll be followed at 7 o'clock by the Srila Prabhupada book study night. So I believe tonight we're going to be watching a movie that corresponds to the book that we're reading. Join in. It's the same Zoom channel. I highly encourage you to check it out if you haven't checked it out. Okay, have a very wonderful Krishna conscious day, and we'll see you back hopefully tonight, and if not tonight, tomorrow morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की